We're doing this by the radiator because it is freezing in this house. Hey gang, welcome back to Grace's Book Place. I'm Grace and this is my book place. As it's a freezing cold January, today we're going to be doing the JAN-uary tag. This is an original tag created by JAN-uary, so I will link to her below so you can see the original video and stuff. But I saw some cool people I follow do this tag, so I thought I'd give it a go because why not? Question 1. What was the last book you read last year? A Marvelous Light was the last book that I completed last year. I loved it. I talked about it in my wrap-up that just came out, and I'm probably going to talk about it in a future video, so look out for that. It also says if you can remember what was the first book you read last year. I believe that the first book that I read last year was Laziness Does Not Exist. It's a cool non-fiction about laziness. Question 2. What is your first read this year? Technically speaking, my first read this year is The Silence of the Girls. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I still have not gotten past 28 pages. It's good though. I think it's just I'm in a weird mood after, the new year and stuff. I haven't really, I'm technically reading both this and The Eye of the World, which is the first book in the Wheel of Time series or whatever. I'm hoping to finish the first book before Caleb and I start watching the TV show because he really wants to watch it, but he's not interested in reading the books, which means it's going to happen soon. We're going to start watching it soon, and I want to have read at least the first book before we do that. So I'm reading Silence of the Girls and The Eye of the World. Question 3. Share 3 of your reading goals this year. My first goal is to try and read for enjoyment more. In December, just mood reading and having fun picking stuff up and discovering what I liked through just what I wanted as I wanted it sort of thing. That was really fun for me and I really enjoyed that. So I think that I had plans to start a TBR game come February because I had plans for January already, but come February I was going to start a TBR game, and I still might do that in the future at some point because I think TBR games are really fun, but I'm really just enjoying doing my own thing and just month to month seeing how I feel and what I want to do. So I'm not going to do that for a little while, and I'm going to see if this whole mood reading planning approach works for me. So that's number 1. My second reading goal would be to read more nonfiction. I struggle with nonfiction, I've mentioned this before. I really enjoy the nonfiction that I do read, so it's not that I don't like nonfiction, I just struggle with the motivation to read nonfiction. I have a couple of nonfictions that I've got to finish this month. They're on my TBR, but there are a lot of important nonfictions that I really need to get to. A lot of important reads, and also just fun reads that I've been they're still important, but I've got a bunch of non-fiction books about whales and I just really like whales and I'd like to actually sit down and read the books that I have about them. So yeah, I'd like to read more non-fiction. I like to try and read one non-fiction a month, but I'm not going to keep myself to that strictly, just because of doing so would contradict goal number 1 with the whole mood reading thing. My third reading goal this year would be to engage more with the booktube and bookstagram communities, to make more bookish friends, and to take part in readathons, and reading sprints is something I'd really like to get involved with, or just take part in other people's, so that sort of thing. Just building the community and really just enjoying books with other people. That'd be great. Question 4. 3 of your most anticipated titles. Number 1 is Book of Night, I believe, by Holly Black. It is the only book that I have pre-ordered for 2022. I just like Holly Black. Ever since I read Tithe as a young teenager, I've loved all of Holly Black's stuff. It's supposed to be her adult debut, which is really exciting and interesting, and I look forward to seeing what that entails. Number 2, which I'm extremely excited about. It was only actually announced earlier this month. I'm so excited. It is book 2 in the Last Binding trilogy. The title apparently is A Restless Truth. I'm literally finding this out now as you're looking at me because I looked it up specifically to see if I could list it here. It's book 2. It's the sequel to A Marvelous Light, which I loved. So, yeah, the second book is apparently coming out at the end of 2022. It doesn't have a specific date, but on her Twitter, Freya Mask said A Restless Truth out in late 2022. She also has apparently said that it's like lesbian Knives Out on a boat. If you think Robin has a knack for attracting trouble, may I introduce his sister? So it's following Maud, following his sister Maud, and I'm so excited. Like, I am still on the major hype train for this book because I just finished it, and it's really exciting to discover a new series, and it's the debut, I think, overall from this author, so that's really exciting, and I'm really interested in this world, and I'm sure it will have Robin and Edwin in it, but I am excited to see more from Maud because his sister's epic. So I need to stop talking about this now because this is gonna just become a video for how much I love this book, and I'm excited for the rest of the series. For my third option for this like anticipated titles thing, rather than an anticipated title, I'm gonna say that there's a particular genre that I anticipate reading more of, or not genre, medium that I want to read more of this year, and that's graphic novels and comics and manga and all of that stuff. Through starting the Paper Girl series, I sort of discovered how fun graphic novels can be, which I always knew in theory, but I just never really gravitated towards that. But like now I'm fully invested, and there's like a ton of graphic novels on my wish list, and I would like to finish out Paper Girls, read Saga, I'd like to read Sheets, I think it is. I'd also really love to read Lore Olympus. I've already read some of it because I read it on Webtoons. I stopped for a bit, and then when I thought about continuing, I found out that the book was coming out, and I'd rather read the book. So I would like to get that at some point. I'm currently on a book buying ban, so that's not happening, but I would really like to have a focus on graphic novels as well this year, and all of those titles are things that are anticipated because they're new to me, not necessarily because they're coming out this year. Question number 5. Which goals did you reach or not reach last year? Well, last year I had a major goal of starting a booktube. Did that, so that's amazing. That was my main thing. I did complete my first ever Goodreads challenge because before last year I didn't really take part in that. So I had a goal of 50 books. I read 60 books. That's amazing. I'm really proud of reaching that goal. And I didn't make my pages goal, I think it was. And I didn't really set that until towards the end of the year anyway. And I sort of had a moment where I very roughly calculated how many pages I might realistically be able to get to, and I like nice round numbers, so I went for 25,000. I think in the end I got 24.5 thousand or something. Like I needed 400 to 500 pages, and I just didn't have the time, obviously in December, to squeeze in a whole other book to try and make up those pages, so I didn't achieve that goal, which I'm not that bothered about. But I have the same goal this year of 25,000 and a goal of 60 books, so I'm hoping if we're going for it, maybe I'll finally hit that pages goal this year, but it's not the end of the world if not. I also had a goal of buying less books like for the second half of the year, and I think I accomplished that. I didn't really buy, like for the first part of the year I was buying a lot of books. I was going a bit mad, and then for the second half of the year I think I really stuck to my book buying ban. I still gained a lot of books because I'm very blessed and got quite a few books for Christmas and birthday, but other than that I think I did an alright job of avoiding buying too many books myself. Question number 6. Are there 2022 releases you've heard of that you have no desire to read? There are possibly some. I know I've seen some books floating around that are being advertised that I'm not bothered about, but I can't name specific titles. I can say like genres that I don't gravitate towards tend to be romance and historical fiction, even though I know I can enjoy both of the, like, whilst also being fantasy, this was romance and historical fiction, so it's not that I don't enjoy those things. There may be titles within those genres that I've been like about when I've seen them. I know there's a new Colleen Hoover coming out, and I don't currently have any interest in reading that. I don't know if that comes out this year or if it's already out. That's not a dig at Colleen Hoover or saying that I don't enjoy those books. I've just never read a Colleen Hoover, and I'm not that big into romance, and she's a big romance author, so that's why it would be something I'm not just gravitating towards. However, I do have plans to read my first ever Colleen Hoover soon, so stay tuned for that. Question 7. What are some reading habits you want to change this year, if any? I already talked briefly about the whole TBR setup. I mean, last year I didn't have a TBR game or anything, but I did try and like pick my TBR a bit more randomly and stick to it, and I think that made some months not fun. So I think this year I'm gonna not do, because I had like, it wasn't a TBR game, but I had like my little, I think I have it here actually. It's really terrible and warped, and we're never using it again, so it's fine that it's been like basically destroyed. But like, I have my wheel, so I would spin this and post that on my Instagram stories. So it's like a TBR game, but just like a generic wheel prompt thing. This year I'm going for a more relaxed sort of, maybe a theme, but other than that, choosing what I read and how much I read and not really stressing about it. And there's also what I said about reading more nonfiction, and I'd actually like to branch out more into horror and things like that. I'd like to read a lot of genres that aren't always my go-to. Other than that, I think I'm fairly happy with my approach to my reading. I prioritize enjoyment. I would like to be more courageous in my DNFing. I'm not very good at DNFing books. I am theoretically all for DNFing books. I completely agree with the premise that if you don't enjoy it, don't read it. Like, don't force yourself to read stuff you don't enjoy. But I'm not very good at putting it into practice because I think I have this need to, I'm a thorough believer in taking the thing to have an opinion of the thing, like have an informed opinion. Obviously to an extent, like you can still, you know, there's still some things that are clearly not good. You shouldn't have to approach them if you know what's in them and it's going to be harmful to you and stuff like that. But otherwise, if I'm not enjoying reading something, sometimes I have a bad habit of pushing through. So I've read the whole thing so I can feel like I'm standing on more solid ground when I say I didn't enjoy the thing. So I would like to be a bit more brave when it comes to actually DNFing stuff I don't like, because there's not enough hours in the day. And there's so many wonderful books I'd like to read. I don't want to get stuck on ones I'm not enjoying. Question 8. Are there any adaptations you're excited about? Yes. Immediately, first thing that comes to mind is that in September of this year, on 2nd of September, I think, which is Hobbit Day, I believe, the new Middle-earth Lord of the Rings TV show comes out. And there is nothing in the world I'm more excited about when it comes to adaptations than that. I am like a massive Lord of the Rings fan. Caleb and I both are. And in this house there is very tense excitement whenever it comes up because we're so excited, but it needs to be good because Middle-earth is just a world I don't want ruined. So that's number 1, hands down. For others, I'm not too sure about other things that are coming out this year. When I was like thinking of this, the other thing that came to mind was the Percy Jackson adaptation that's going to be happening for Disney Plus, but that's actually not coming out until 2023, so can't have that for this. But there are a bunch of adaptations that came out late 2021 or like in 2021 towards the end or whatever that I haven't started yet, that I will be starting this year. So that includes season 2 of The Witcher, that includes the Wheel of Time adaptation, The Expanse, which like my mum and my brother I think have been like banging on that I need to watch and everything. However, I didn't put together until the other day when I was watching one of Daniel Green's videos that The Expanse show was about Leviathan Wakes. I didn't realise that series was called The Expanse series. So now it's another show that I really want to watch, but I need to read that series before I watch it. So I'll probably be trying to read Leviathan Wake soon to get a head start on that. So those are some adaptations that they're not new this year, but they're new to me this year, and I want to watch them this year. So that counts. Question 9. Favourite bookish memory of last year? I actually think that my favourite bookish memory, collection of memories, I guess, but last year, Caleb and I read together, out loud to each other, all of the Percy Jackson books. Well, 3 of them. I had already read the first 2 and he's already read all of them, so we started from the 3rd book. But we finished off the Percy Jackson series together, and then we read all of Heroes of Olympus, and we read the first 1.5 books from the Trials of Apollo series. So I would say that that's my favourite memory, like bookish memory from last year, is just being able to have that experience of sharing reading with my husband in that way, with some of his favourite books ever written, because the Percy Jackson series and the Heroes of Olympus were his childhood, and I'm so excited to continue doing that this year because we're still reading book 2 of Trials of Apollo, and there's 3 more books after that in that series, and Rick Riordan has other worlds that we would like to dive into together, so I'm looking forward to continuing on with that. Question 10. Are there any carryovers from last year that you still plan on finishing? Yes, my entire TBR is essentially this. My January TBR was based on the idea that I would read books that I started last year or before that. So a couple of them I started like 3 years ago, but there's a couple of them that I started last year, and I am trying this month to finish all the books that I started before this year so that I can have like a clean slate and there's no books half done, half read. So go watch that if you're interested in the answer to this question, which is such a cop-out. But yes, this month I will be reading books that are technically carryovers from last year. Okay, that was really fun. I hope you enjoyed that, like me just talking at you from my radiator. I am really excited for this year of bookish content and reading, and there's so many exciting books I want to read this year, and I'm having a particular focus actually on books I already own, because I think I own about 200 books, and over half of those are books I haven't read, which is really awful. We're going to read a lot of books together this year, and I'm really excited to have you guys here to enjoy that with. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me in my book place, and hopefully I will see you next time. If you're interested in any other places that I hang out, any other book places that I have, links to like my Instagram and Goodreads are down below, and my story graph is just Grace's Book Place if you want to search for me on there and follow me or friend me or whatever. Thanks so much, and see you next time. Bye!